Welcome back to HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red. A woman whose skinny jeans landed her in the hospital made headlines after doctors discovered nerve damage. And it's not just tight pants that are risky fashion choices. From the Spanx and crop tops to shoes and handbags, some of the items we find stylish can actually cause harm from head to toe. Joining us now to discuss what happens when beauty is more than pain, we have a great panel, starting with Dr. Charles Dietzek. He's a board-certified vascular surgeon and vein specialist. He's also the founder of the Vein and Vascular Institute. We have Justin Bartels, a photographer who did a series called Impression, which shows what women wear to attract and how it literally hurts them. Manfred Santine, he's a chemist at Greenpeace Germany. Marcel Pick, a nurse practitioner at Women to Women. And Marissa Brown, an editor at Cafe Moms The Stir, who wrote, "Your Spanks are squeezing you sick." All right, y'all, this is a super important conversation. Marissa, I'm tickled to have you because you confessed to wearing Spanx. That's not the only confession, step one. But step two, you felt bad every time you wore them. What did you experience?
So I would often wear Spanx, and still do actually, to special occasions like weddings, especially this time of year, wedding season, right? And of course, when you're at a wedding, you're trying to dance, but also eat some rich food perhaps and drink. So those two things don't quite go hand in hand, the Spanx and the rich food and the drinking. So I would suffer acid reflux from time to time while trying to wear shapewear to these special occasions. Maybe even just out to not even necessarily a wedding, you know, that happens on date nights as well. So, yep.
That's exactly what you want to have on a date night, right, Marissa? You want some acid reflux going on because of your Spanx. You're actually lucky. I'm sure you heard from different viewers. So many of my friends have the Spanx nightmare stories, passing out, feeling faint, just overall horribleness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Beauty is pain, I guess, but you do have to moderate what you're eating and drinking. So that can happen when you're wearing shapewear.
It can happen, Dr. Dietzek, and for some people the damage is relatively permanent. When we wear things that are too tight, whether it's clothing or shaping garments, what's actually happening to our bodies?
Well, it's all according to what area of the body is being squeezed. In this particular case, when you're talking about the Spanx, that's a situation where you're squeezing your stomach and then actually forcing the contents of your stomach up your esophagus. But in the situation of, let's say, lower extremities, you could be squeezing the legs, the muscles, and subsequently this could result in swelling of the tissues and cause compromise to the blood flow of the extremity, and then subsequently possibly nerve damage.
Marcel, you work with women on a very frequent basis. You see the damage done by items meant to make us beautiful or feel beautiful, that they're actually causing tremendous pain and suffering.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we also have a lot of women that are wearing skinny jeans now, as well as some different kinds of underwears, and all of those things now we're starting to see have effects on women. And one of the things that we aren't talking about today is also the preservatives that they use, unfortunately, in a lot of clothing that's causing dermatitis and causing problems because they're still using formaldehyde and almost 8,000 different chemicals in the clothing that we're wearing. So not only do we have to be careful of how tight our clothes are and where restrictions are, but we also have to be aware about the quality of the fabrics that we're using, because for some people they're ultra sensitive to that. And when we're putting it on our skin, our liver then is not able, because it's going directly into the tissue, to detoxify that. So for some people, we have that additional burden, as well as the tightness of our clothes, but also the kinds of clothes that we're wearing that have the toxins, unfortunately, in them to prevent them from having bacteria or having odor or wrinkle-free and things like that, too. So it is something to be mindful of for all of us, you know.
Manfred, weigh in here. What she's saying is absolutely right. This is the work that you do, correct?
This is the work that I do, absolutely. Yes, it is.
Manfred as well. We'd love to have...
Hello.
Yes, you also cover this type of thing. A lot of people are not thinking. They might be thinking, okay, well, I want comfortable clothes, or I want clothes that look this certain way. People frequently are not thinking about what's actually in clothing and how it might affect their health.
That's right. And Greenpeace is running a campaign since 2011 and focusing on these hazardous chemicals that are used in textile industry. Mm-hmm. And yeah, one thing is the health effect that can be at the consumer part, of course, and the consumer side, but the major problem is really the manufacturing of the chemicals, because there are hundreds, thousands of chemicals used in the textile industry, and most of them in Asia. So the people in Asia who work with that chemicals are most affected, and we showed in several studies that as well the clothes that come into our stores in the US or in Europe are still have residues from this hazardous chemicals. And you never know what happens if a child, for example, gets in contact with an endocrine disruptor.
That's a great point. Marissa, I didn't know about you. One of the conversations that sparked when we were planning for this segment is, do you wash your new clothes? I hadn't even thought about washing new clothes until this conversation, right?
Right. Well, I mean, underwear, you would think.
Well, yes, underwear, that's a different conversation, yes.
And bathing suits. Yeah, but I would believe most of our readers on the stir are not necessarily washing their jeans or their blouses before they're wearing them. But perhaps we should be.
So there are a lot of health issues that we're recognizing when it comes to clothing, not just the fit, the breathability, the comfort level, what it's squeezing, but also what it's made of or what it's been through. Justin, you have a beautiful photo series where you capture women in particular who are dressing for beauty, but it's causing them pain. What inspired you to do this photo series?
Sure. Yeah, it actually came about. I was dating a girl back in 2010 when I was at the Art Center College of Design, getting my degree in photography and imaging. And I had a second degree earlier in sociology, and so I'd always been interested in, how people are affected in society, and just was paying attention to the girls I dated. And I dated a girl who was a model, and she loved to dress up and look good, and she thought that dressing a certain way made her feel good. And so we'd go out, and I'd explain all the time, like, why do you need to wear such uncomfortable clothing and such binding clothing? You're always going to complain about it later. You're always going to tell me, like, oh, my feet are killing me, or my jeans are killing me, or my bra is digging in. And so I'd always question why she wore what she wore. And I also found it, as a photographer, a very interesting visual. Seeing these imprints left on the skin once the articles were taken off. And so it's very interesting sociologically and psychologically, but also from a visual standpoint, and it very, attracted me to make a series about this. So,
Marcel, when you see images, it just embodies what you try to explain to individuals about taking care of yourself and being careful about what you wear. Is it hard to get through the message, however, even when you are going through this, even when they do know how it makes them feel? Do you find it difficult to get them to act and wear more comfortable but less perhaps appealing items?
Well, that's a great question, because I think it's motivated by how badly people feel initially. So if I have people, which I do, come from all over the country to see me, and they're not feeling well, and I start to explain to them that it goes for the food that we're eating, the nutrients that we're taking, but also what we're putting on our body. And unfortunately, a lot of women, myself included, are very aware of what we look like, especially if you're in the media a fair amount of time. So it's finding that dance and that balance of perhaps wearing more cotton. If you're going to use a dry cleaner, that you use one that's really green oriented, as well as that, if you have something, put it outside first before you wear it, washing the clothes beforehand, and being more conscientious. People don't know this material, and I love the fact that you're putting this on air, because so many people don't even think about it. It's like, oh my God, the clothes that I wear have chemicals in it too, and my liver can't detoxify it. Who would have thought? So the more we can educate people and have things like this, I think the better it is. And the more educated they are, the more likely they are to make changes in their lifestyle, especially when I teach them about what it does to children, because they're so much more susceptible. Getting flame retardant pajamas is a fantastic concept to prevent fire.
I cannot even get you started on the flame retardant in the pajamas.
I know.
It's insane. Like, oh, I don't understand. Like, if the flame is that close to your child, you have bigger problems. And
you do.
It's just insane.
I know. So, I agree.
So there are things we can and cannot prevent. I mean, one of the things that I learned is with children's pajamas, you want the ones with that yellow tag that says this item does not have flame retardant. As though that's a pejorative.
Exactly.
It's actually a positive. Manfred, you mentioned what we're dealing with toxins from the floor of the places that the clothing is being manufactured. We're also dealing with issues that are coming from the dyeing or what's in the dye and stuff like that. Can clothing be salvaged? That being said, can something be washed? Or is there some way to get rid of toxins in already owned clothes? And is there some way to find clothing that you're relatively certain doesn't have this type of material?
That's a good question, difficult to answer. First of all, yes, you should wash new clothing because there are a lot of residues of chemicals on there that will be washed off in the first washing. So that is much better than for the consumer. And on the other hand, you cannot get rid of all these chemicals. It depends on if these chemicals are soluble in water or not. So, what was the second part of the question, sorry?
What can you look for?
What can you look for? So, there are a few labels that guarantee that these hazardous chemicals are not used in the production. For example, the Global Organic Textile Standard. That's valid for all clothes made from cotton. If you find that tag, then you can be sure that hazardous chemicals are not used and are not as residues in that textiles, for example. Another label is the blue sign that is pretty good, but the GOTS label is much better.
The what? The geotranslators?
The Global Organic Textile Standard, GOTS.
No, we've talked a little bit about how to avoid these problems, whether it comes from what's in the clothing or how we wear the clothing. Dr. Dietzek, what are some of the problems that you find individuals are coming to you with, and are they reversible? I know we've talked about you can have the nerve damage from the jeans or the compression and acid reflux from the spanks. What percentage of these problems are permanent versus fixable?
I would say that, first off, the majority of the time, we don't see permanent problems from these types of clothing. So I don't want to alarm the public at large from buying too tight garments. I mean, this is a very rare circumstance that there was a person in Australia that was wearing too tight jeans and subsequently ended up with a compartment syndrome of her leg, meaning she had a lack of blood supply and the nerves were potentially damaged. So this is a very, very rare circumstance. I think the situation with the spanks is definitely much more common that could cause gastrointestinal reflux. With regard to the vascular supply to the lower extremities, we don't really have any data to say that this type of clothing is causing permanent damages or blood clots, but there is always the potential that this could occur. And, that's, raising the awareness that beauty is one thing, but we want to make sure that we maintain good function, that we're wearing clothing that is not causing constriction in the extremities, in the groin area, in the abdomen, to the point that it's causing you to be sick.
How do we know when something is too tight? That sounds like a ridiculous question, but I'm sure Justin can weigh in. A lot of the time, people don't even realize what indentations are happening on their body until you peel the item off.
Right. Well, I mean, I think an indentation on your skin or seeing some impression of some clothing on your skin is a mild example. But I think that what we want to be concerned about is, first off, if we're talking about like shoes and straps on shoes, we want to make sure that you can have two fingers that could fit underneath the strap such that it's not constricting and creating like a tourniquet effect on the extremity. Because if that occurs, what you'll end up with is subsequent swelling, and then that digging into the skin is going to become that much more substantial and potentially create a problem where the blood flow would be compromised and then could result in a compartment syndrome or possibly also create a problem where the blood supply is slowed to develop a blood clot. So these are things that we want to be certain to make sure that we could put two fingers underneath the strap of a strap of a shoe. As far as a situation where you're wearing skinny jeans, you want to make sure that if it's hurting you when you go to squat or if you go to sit and it's digging into your groin area, then I would say that that's a good indication. If it's causing you pain, then that's the point that you should say this is not the appropriate garment for you to be wearing. It's one thing to look beautiful in the mirror, It's another thing for you to start compromising your health. And so you really want to take a step back and think about these, common sense approach to different types of clothing that are available out there. It's like also the corset. If you're going to have to get into a corset and, see someone putting their knee in your back in order to tighten up a corset in order to get you to fit into that, I mean, that's just not appropriate. And I would say that you should probably, wear something a little bit looser in order so that you can not only prevent gastrointestinal reflux, but also so that you can breathe. So
well, it's easier said than done. We have a comment here from Janet. I stopped torturing myself for fashion ages ago. I grew up. Justin, have you seen any change in action, but not just the individuals who see your photographs, but the individuals who are photographed? Are they choosing more comfortable clothing?
I wish I could say that they did, but some people really care about their image a lot. And depending on the person, there's been a great response internationally from this series being published and viewable, and it's gone viral a couple of times on the internet. And there's been a really great response. I think from the consumer end, it's good to educate women about what options are out there, and that there are high-end designers really trying to push more research and development. I got contacted by a shoe designer in Italy about my series because they wanted to use my images as a before and after, and how they were designing much more comfortable high heels, designer high heels that created better airflow and more support and give. And so they're much more comfortable, but also very fashion savvy. And so I think it's really on the designer end to really do a lot more research and give the consumer better options.
Well, and also consumer awareness is key. Speaking of airflow, Marissa, you also write about the need for more breathable undergarments, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's something I've been hearing from my mom since I was a little girl. Gotta have breathable materials like cotton.
Gotta air out your lady parts.
Yep. But I do think it's also important to say that it's not just on women. There's a lot of social pressure, like just what just happened at Cannes, that women weren't being allowed into screenings because they weren't wearing heels. So, it's a more global problem than just women want to wear these uncomfortable, unhealthy clothes. We kind of all have to work together, I think, to promote healthy fashion.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's something that is not just on us. The onus isn't on individuals. We do need as a society to recognize health concerns, not just what's we're wearing, but what's in the clothes we're wearing. Because Marcel, fabric and other issues is a bigender situation. Like both genders deal with toxic clothing.
Absolutely. You know what? One of the places that I see it the most is in perimenopausal women. That's when you really see a lot of this kind of taking off, especially with the chemicals that are in the clothes. So I think the more that we can get people educated about the things that all of us are doing, the tightness of the clothes, the comfort, and there is a balance between the worlds. You can look beautiful and also have comfortable clothes. And you can also have clothes that are non-toxic that look gorgeous as well. So it's really getting out for all of us to get out there and be outspoken about it, and then teaching people. And also in my practice, I do it all the time because they really are getting sick from this and they just didn't know it.
Manfred, are you starting to see people become more aware? Are they recognizing, are they making correlations between their personal health and the items that they don?
Yes, people become more aware. That's right. But I would say responsible to provide us with clean clothes are the brands that earn the money with that. They sell the clothes and they have to make sure that these clothes are safe for the consumers. And that is where Greenpeace is working on. We try to get as much brands as possible that commit to phase out hazardous chemicals out of production. That's good for the employees in East Asia. It's good for the consumers.
Dr. Dietzek, Justin, Manfred, Marcel, and Marissa, we appreciate each of you being here. For more information on our great guests and on fashion health hazards, check out our resource well below this video screen. Click on those links and stay tuned. The conversation always continues here at HuffPost Live.